Right. Okay. Hello and welcome to this week's The Double 15 Minutes with me, Rupa, and my brilliant guest, Jay Jordan. So, those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming live across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So, if you are watching us from any of those platforms, please post your name and, just in the comments section and where you're watching from. So, yeah, Freedom Day today, Jay, apparently.
Apparently.
It's like, yeah, Freedom Day, we've all been imprisoned, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't made much difference to my life, to be honest.
No, well, I can imagine, and we'll get onto that shortly. So, because we have got half an hour for the show, so I'm not going to we're not going to do too much small talk because both of us established earlier that we're not really small talky people, and it's just like get straight into the nitty gritty of things, isn't it? So, Jay, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. From a comment that I left on one of your posts on TikTok to this, so thank you.
No, thanks for having me on, mate.
No, oh God, no, my absolute pleasure. One of the things that I was actually saying is that, it's I just found what you'd said was so interesting. So we've had Cami Robertson joining us saying, hi, guys. Hi, Cami. Thank you for joining us. We've got Nahal watching us. Hey, Nahal. And like I said, Cami. So what was really interesting, Jay, was it was your post that really caught my eye, because one of the things that that got the conversation going was that we'd actually managed to raise, or somebody had set up a GoFundMe account for one of the, was it the German girl, when the team had lost against Britain, and thugs being thugs had actually started making derogatory comments about her, and somebody decided that actually, you know what, this isn't right, let's raise money. So they managed to raise 37, but I've just jumped further ahead than I wanted to. Let me take it back before I say anything else, and we will go into that conversation in a minute. But just to let everyone know that is watching, Jay is the founder and managing director of an organization, a not-for-profit organization called Pegasus Ops. Jay is also a war veteran, one of our heroes. And, we're here to talk about Pegasus Ops and the work that he does, the very, very important work that he does in the very dark arena of child abduction and kidnapping. Now, one of the things, Jay, when people think about abductions and kidnapping, a lot of people sort of like automatically jump to human trafficking, but actually a lot of your work you do is parental abduction, isn't it?
Yeah, so a lot of it's parental abductions, and the majority of cases that we take on are for private families and themselves. At the moment, there's a lot of organizations out there that are going against sex trafficking. There's a lot of organizations that are getting a lot of government funding all over the world, taking on organized crime elements when it comes to kidnapping children and obviously young women as well.
Yeah.
But no one's ever really paid attention to the actual individual families. And when it comes to the individual families, there's nobody looking for their children. So yeah, a lot of it's parental abductions, and parental abductions in itself, a lot of people mistake, even the police mistake a parental abduction as being a safe abduction. However, in my experience, when it comes to every single parental abduction that I've dealt with, the parent that's always leaving, all right, so not always the parent that's leaving, but one of the parents is always suffering some sort of mental health issues. And we have to analyze all of the time who it is that's actually got these mental health issues, because they do come, it comes up and it becomes very clear very quickly. Sometimes we have a client who is a parent that's trying to get his child back, but the parent that's kidnapped the child has run away from a domestic abuse relationship or mental abuse, and that goes into physical abuse as well. So we have to analyze if we're doing the right thing on that side of things, and then obviously there's the side of it, how much danger is that child in, and we have to act fast on it every single time.
And it's, I can imagine sort of, because you're constantly sort of like living on, sort of like you're looking at the facts, but also intuition as well. And I guess sort of like your background in the forces, and also you went into private contracting as well, didn't you? So, is a lot of your work, what percentage is factual based? What percentage is intuitive?
I I would say that it's probably about, I mean, the facts, they speak for themselves without a doubt, but the decisions are definitely primarily it's intuition.
Yeah.
Every decision that you make on the ground has to be intuition, because it's that what guides you all the way through it all.
Yeah.
I've spoken many times on my lives about it, that numbers guide me all over the way. And when I don't see those numbers, I get very worried. But when it comes to a decision, I've learned over the years, you have to trust your gut, because the gut will tell you every single thing that you need to know. If there's an alarm bell ringing, it's ringing for a reason.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. I mean, that's probably sort of like, you know, especially somebody who's been in the armed forces, it's, you know, you do need to be far more aware of everything around you. So just to say, we've had a few people joining us. So we've had, Cami has actually said, tell Jay it's Rafiki here. He will know who this is. Long. And we've had Sharon Lawrence joining us. Pretty is watching us. Dee has also joined us. So thank you all for joining us. Now, here's a question I wanted to ask you. Like, you know, we talk about sort of like you saying that a lot of like the parental abductions, you know, that a lot of the abductions are actually parental. Now, how much involvement do the police have in these?
Overall, it's very little. When a parent kidnaps a child, like I say, they mistake it to be a safe abduction. So when it comes to prioritizing a parental abduction in itself, they'll put it as a low priority, and at the most they'll put it at medium priority, which means that they're not going to be spending much time on it. The problem that you have when it comes to the authorities is that they're limited to their jurisdictions, they're limited to their budget, they're limited to the amount of time that they're actually allowed to spend on a case before moving on to the next case, because they get so many things coming in. So a lot of the time it's just left to the fact that it's a domestic dispute, and then that goes through the domestic courts, which will then end up leading to the Hague courts. So the police in themselves are not doing anything about it. That gives them so much time to be able to run. It's like last year there were 3 children that were kidnapped by an Afghani father. They were in foster care down in London. The report that came out, it was all there. It was all detailed that they'd done this, they'd done that, and then put pictures at the ports, everything like this, at the airports, everything like that. I flew out of the UK March this year. Not a single passport check going through there. So it doesn't make any difference. The authorities, they're not interested.
Which is a shame. So I mean, I know sort of like we're going to speculate here, so we won't go into that question as to sort of like why. So we've had a few. Let me just go into a few things. So we've had James Jordan joining us, saying hello. TJ Quinn has joined us as well. So here's the thing. So you said that sort of like, you know, when it is parental abductions, they sort of, you know, it's potentially domestic abuse, fleeing from domestic abuse, etc.
Yeah.
My question here is, you know, you say that it's given medium priority, but what does that mean? How many hours or days do the police put into trying to track an abducted child or abducted children down?
It's my experience that it's no more than 48 hours. But the problem that you got is, again, when it comes to jurisdictions, they will literally, if they see a car leaving on the AMPRs out of their jurisdiction, then they pass it on to their next jurisdiction. So you got one county, it crosses over to another county, and it's not even just counties; it's actually areas within the counties themselves. It's passed on. So now they're waiting for a phone call. Then it goes through another one, passed on, waiting for another phone call. It ends up being a chain of phone calls being waited for. So if you've got an international abduction, you now got a chain of phone calls throughout the UK, which are then passed on to a foreign country. And whatever foreign country it is, they're not as responsive as what the UK police are. They're even worse sometimes. And then you've got their jurisdictions and their phone calls, and it's just a massive phone call chain. 48 hours, I can guarantee that they're not doing anything. The difference with us is that we do something, and we can respond immediately, and we chase down every single lead, no matter where it goes, physically on the ground. So we're constantly chasing whoever has taken the children, whether that be parental abduction or whether that be a criminal element or whether that be an organized gang. We're going after those children no matter what.
So here's my question: is like, you know, the same sort of like with a parental abduction, and it's 48 hours. But that 48 hours, if the police haven't done anything and they are having to go through sort of like lots of bureaucracy, within that 48 hours, that child is potentially has left the country. So out of, say, you know, what percentage of those children are ever sort of like traced back, or actually are? What percentage of children are able to be recovered without your help? So are the police able to recover? Okay,
so when it comes to parental abductions in itself, if it's in within the individual nation, then eventually they will be found. And I say that very lightly because it's not the police that do it. Eventually, the courts will go through, and then they end up getting in touch with each other because obviously it's parental disputes. And they end up getting in touch with each other, and then they have to go through the courts, to go through custody and all this. Now, if it's an international case, it's a very small percentage of that are found, unless they want to be found. The only way that they will be found is by getting in touch with the other parent. That's when court cases will start, and then you go through your local court cases. Then the parent that's left behind will have to go to the country that the other parent has ran away to. And sometimes they run away. They don't. A lot of the time they run home because it'll be somebody a mixed marriage in the aspect of one country and another country. So a lot of times they run home, which makes it obviously a lot easier. Sometimes they don't. I've had cases where they've run away to Japan because they know that they've got a safe haven where they can't be taken out of that country. It's not part of the Hague Convention. So then these court cases, they lead to the Hague cases. The Hague cases then lead to a return order being issued by the Hague. If it's within a year, this gets very complicated, so you got to bear with me, right? But then you've got the Hague. All those countries that are signed up towards within the Hague are supposed to initiate that return order and get that child put back into the place where that child is supposed to be. The Hague state that they've got a high percentage. I know for a fact they do not have a high percentage. It's very low that they actually get back, because majority of the time the systems within the courts is all about financial gain over getting those children back.
So that, so saying sort of like politics comes into play when it comes to getting the children back, and also I guess to a certain extent you've got sort of like how much corruption is within that country that the child has been taken to. So we've had a few comments. So Sarah said, hello, most parental custody issues, as in he hasn't returned the children after a contact, are treated very low key by the authorities. And she's also said, what I do not understand is how children are taken out of the country with fake passports or without permission of both parents. Now, so for example, we're going to go on to your book in a moment, because you have written a book about a very specific case that you yourself organised, pulled together, and you also conducted the mission. So before we do that, but how is it possible, for one parent to abduct a child like that?
It's very easy. Very easy. A lot of countries, they have in place where it's basically a form that you got to get filled out, and then you've got to get an affidavit stamp on it, and then one parent's got to say sign and give permission to travel on certain dates, etc., etc. There are very few countries that enforce it. Romania is a key country that does enforce it, but not all the time. The UK, not a chance. Like I said, I've traveled out of the country recently, and I didn't get a passport check until I actually got to my destination. The only time my passport was checked was when I was checking in. So when it comes to putting passport blocks on, because there are systems in place to stop children from traveling by blocking their passports, which pulls up a red mark on their passport the minute it's scanned by immigration. If you haven't got those systems in place, it's not going to work. So it's very easy to get out of country. Now, a lot of parents, they're not going to run away on a fake passport. They're going to run away on actual travel documents. For example, if they're in a foreign country and they're coming back to the UK, it's very easy, and I know this because it's tactics that we use to actually assist parents in actually getting their children back when we're enforcing the Hague. But they can get emergency travel documents very easily, as long as they've got the time period to be able to do it. It's all about planning. So overall, it's very easy for them to do, unless the prior planning is put into place by the parent. If he believes or she believes that their partner is going to run, that's the only way that it can stop.
So if we've got sort of like, say, a couple that it's a mixed marriage, irrespective of what country they're from, how can we start getting the authorities to actually take this seriously? And also a secondary to that, so what sort of like costs are we looking at in terms of repatriating the child, sort of like going to that country and actually finding that child and bringing it back, and what is the process around that? Okay,
so numbers. Let's talk numbers for a second. Statistically, now numbers. Nobody understands how large the numbers are, and there's millions of children that go missing every single year. Are these numbers? And let me just run a few. Right, every website has different statistics. These statistics here are taken off the Global Missing Children Network. But if you look at an American web pages in comparison to British web pages, they're all very different statistics because no one accurately does it. Australia 20,000 on average. Canada 45,288 on average. This is per year. Go missing. In Germany 100,000. India 96,000. Jamaica 1,984 estimated. Russia an estimated 45,000, and in Spain an estimated of 20,000. Now those statistics I know 100% are not accurate, and just those 6 countries there add up to 900,000 children that are reported missing every single year.
And that's the ones that are reported. I mean, like, how many millions are not reported?
But those are not accurate. But if you look at the American websites in themselves, I can't remember the name of the website itself, but it's I scour these websites quite a lot. And there's quite a lot of them. One of the websites in particular talks about the fact that there's over 850,000 children reported missing every single year. There's about 60% that are actually parent or family member that actually kidnaps a child, and 30% of a non-family member kidnapping the child. And then the rest of it is children that are actually returned home. So that one country, according to their statistics, at over 850,000 children go missing every year. Now, if the numbers are that high, how can the government not take it seriously?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? It's like, why wouldn't they take it seriously?
It's a question that's going through my mind continuously, and I think that the only way that we can actually make governments take it seriously is if we start changing those statistics. With everything that I'm doing, that's where I want to get to. Right now, we're classed as small. I've got 15 recoveries at the moment. I've got 7 international cases that I'm working on, 3 local cases that I'm working on. Biggest problem that we do have is funding, obviously, which I'll move on to. But with that small number in itself, that's already starting to raise eyebrows. There's already attention coming out there. And there are councils that are out there, local councils that are actually looking into preemptive measures and then immediate measures that they can put into place to actually recover missing children that go missing from care homes and stuff like this, because it's starting to get talked about. Now, we're only small. I want to get to the point where we're large. I want to get to the point where we can take on as many cases as possible. And my aim within the next 12 months is to get to 4 to 6 cases. That's 4 to 6 children every single month that we can return home. And then when those statistics start coming back, people are definitely going to start taking notice. The authorities will start paying attention to us and actually helping us and assisting us and calling us to actually assist them. Funds themselves, I tried to provide a free service. The reason I tried to provide a free service is because there are companies out there, and I know this because it's first-hand experience, because when I started in the industry, I worked for one of these companies, and they literally take money from families, put it in their pocket, and do very little to actually get those children back. They've all got a very large record. You can do a lot of Googling on it. I'm sure you'll find a lot. But overall, they literally in it for profiting. They want to line their own pockets. They'll take us anywhere between 30 to 150,000 pounds off a parent or family. They will then buy their time to make it look like they're doing their case, but provide very little evidence. They don't get the family involved, whereas I'm very different because the family works very closely with me. And then when their time has come up to the point where it looks like they've spent that money, they'll either ask for more money or they'll end the case. On a rare occasion, they will complete a case, but usually it's a very overpriced case and a very easy case. And then outside of that, there's cases that they've taken on, which are the ones that you'll find all over the internet, where because they sell themselves as special forces companies, they're not. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research, you'll soon find out. But not, and they go in with very little experience. These are doormen, these are tattoo artists, ex-cons, bully boys, basically.
And it's shocking because, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, there needs to be some sort of legislation that stops this happening. Now, we've got a few more comments. I'm just going to go through some of the comments that we've had. We've had Jordan Holmes joining, saying, hi, Jay. Sarah is saying, we need to get the law changed to prevent children leaving the UK without both parents' permission, especially if they're travelling to countries outside of the Hague Convention. TJ Quinn joining, saying the government needs to fund Pegasus Ops to help. Well, absolutely. Will Whitehouse has said those stats are shocking, which they are, and considering that those stats may not even be the full numbers. Sarah's also said, my daughter travelled frequently to her father's home. She also travelled with friends and their family at times. And I wrote a letter giving permission for her to travel, but it was never asked for. And that her father lives abroad in the Netherlands. Cammy was saying that he agrees with what you've said. Harry saying, hi Jay, get our kids back, which is what you are doing, everything you can. And Will has says we need to find 100,000 signatures to debate in Parliament. That would be awesome. So one of the things that we've said, because Pretty, who I said earlier, is watching. She is a local councillor here in Leicestershire, and she's taken a real interest in this because, you know, it is something. So she's already said that she will start speaking and using what influence she's got to try and work around this, because we know that there is probably quite a high prevalence of children that may be taken to different countries for whatever reasons from, you know, various cities.
Yeah.
Now here's my question. So, you know, I mean, like you said that some of these people will charge up to, I don't know, 150 odd thousand pounds, which, you know, for a lay person, a normal person like me, I wouldn't be able to afford that at all. So it's either I go bankrupt trying to get my child back, or I don't get my child back. And actually, has it been, like you said, has it been the case, you know, where I will pay 150, 200,000 to person A and I never get my child back? So A, I go bankrupt and I don't get my child back anyway. So what can be done to provide, you know, is legislation needed there for people who are providing this service to actually be more stringent?
The hardest thing is that it's very hard. It's very difficult in itself to be able to put legislation over this industry. It's a worldwide industry. There's multiple different countries involved. A lot of companies are based out in Europe, Australia, America. There's a few more that are popping up in the UK lately. Very difficult to actually put legislation over it. If we set the standards under Pegasus, the idea that we set those standards because we are a veteran company and we're bringing something that no one else has got. We're bringing the veteran side of things into it, plus the years that I've got experience on it and the knowledge that I've got within those companies. That changes the game entirely. Like you say, when a parent goes out and pays that money, they've remortgaged their house, if not sold their houses, all their properties, sold their businesses, they've done everything they can do, and they do end up broke, completely financially unstable with massive loans, and they don't get their children back. We're changing the game on that by raising funds from the general public. We put crowdfunders out there. The concept of what I'm trying to create is what is classed as a people's company. Now we are registered as a limited company. And that's because we've got a security side to us, because the whole idea is that the guys that are working on the security side, they're the guys that I train up to bring out onto child recovery with me and pull them away from the security side. Therefore, we lower those costs immediately for operating costs on the ground. Bang, we've just cut a massive chunk off that debt. So the whole concept of what we're trying to do is that if we can get, for example, on TikTok itself, I've got 60,000 followers. If I can get 60,000 people to donate £2 each, that can literally cover all those cases, international cases that I've got. The average case that I take on, we class it as about £30,000. The realistic cost is anywhere between 15 to 20,000 for a case that has no complications. Take it up to about 25,000 if it's a little bit more complicated in a harder country. And then we've got a buffer zone of about £5,000 in case we have to pay for information or in case we have to pay for specialist equipment to actually recover these children, dependent on the operation itself. But average, 14 to 30 days, we can complete a case and we can get that case done at about 15 to 20,000 pounds. That's international cases. And I take on local cases and that's only a couple of grand, dependent on complexity of the case. Average case is probably about 3 days to 7 days within the UK. Doing that concept, if we get to the point in a population of 7.8 billion or whatever it is in the world now, and we're able to get 1 million people to donate £2 each, that puts us at 4 to 6 cases immediately every single month. That changes the numbers immediately of children that we're actually returning. I've got operators all over the world. That will keep us running for about 2 to 3 years. That gives us 2 to 3 years to raise another £2 million, and I can guarantee this will change the entire world.
Yeah, well, no, of course it would, because at the end of the day, it's bringing the children back home to where they belong, and secondly, you're actually then influencing a whole load of people to do the right thing. Now, here's the question. So, like we spoke earlier about this. You know, obviously, sort of like you're doing sort of like domestic cases, but you're also doing international cases.
Yeah.
What is the process that you follow, and how often do you come across a lot of obstacles when you do go overseas, or have you found that local governments, or even say, I don't know, local influential people, for want of a better word, do you find they are a help or a hindrance to you?
It depends on where you work and depends on the actual case itself. They can definitely be a hindrance, and more times than not, they will be a hindrance, which is why we're going very covert. We don't announce what we're doing, and the only time that anyone actually realizes what's going on is when we're actually gone in and done a recovery. And there's different ways of doing a recovery, and there's different types of cases. For a parental abduction within a Hague country, there's a possibility that we can get the authorities to assist us. But we have to be very careful in assessing whether they will assist us or whether they'll just burn us and take us straight off the ground. So we have to analyze that continuously. It's very difficult to play it out. I've used the systems to my advantage on multiple occasions, and it's all about reading the system. And then obviously this is covert operations. Deception is a big key to it. Letting people believe certain things is a key to it. And I'll give you an example. When I was in Turkey, I went to Turkey. This is when I took Pegasus live. This is the first operation that we did under Pegasus Ops. One of these companies that I spoke about kidnapped a child from Cyprus on April the 27th, 2017. They used bully boy tactics, threw the mother to the ground outside the nursery. They threw the kid into the car. She then ended up being taken to a different car. These guys were masked up. She didn't have a clue what was going on. She was only 4 years old. They then swapped her into another car. This taxi then crossed her over to the other side of the border, onto the Turkish side. And then they handed her over to her father, who she hadn't seen since she was a year old. She didn't know who her father was. So they went on the run. So obviously I went after them. And it took 3 months to chase them down. But when I was in Turkey, I had an Interpol red notice, and the police picked up that I was doing surveillance in an area which was very difficult to get away with doing surveillance in. And they actually started to support me because I showed them the Interpol red notice. They believed I was Interpol. I didn't say that I was Interpol, but they believed it, and they helped me by putting undercover surveillance teams out. And it all worked to my advantage because they covered a lot of ground that would have taken me a lot longer to cover by myself. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so situations like that works in my favor. And then obviously, I mean, there's many stories that I can tell, but there are many books to come. So,
well, that's what we're going to get onto. So we've had a few more comments coming in. We've got a lot of comments coming in. So we've had right, Sarah saying the government are very unlikely to support one company over another. They hate interfering in private businesses. I agree, but Pegasus Ops needs to be the go-to company. Mark Esho has said he loves what you're doing.
Thanks.
Jessica Wilson Van Bacton said, Jay, an amazing job. Your company, www.pegasus-ops.com, is amazing, with a love heart. Sarah said, can I mention Madeleine McCann? Just did. They were scammed in the early days by a fake special forces guy. Can you imagine had you been involved from the start? And then Jessica has also said, I've just got my copies of your book too. She's put a thank you, actually, because we were going to be putting the links in. So thank you for putting the links in, Jessica. You know, so for those of you, we're going to talk about the book now, because that is a really important section. That's, you know, one of the things that we do really want to talk about, and the follow on from the book. Sarah's saying it's a misogynistic crime. How many women are the perpetrators? Great question. Will has said, great book, couldn't put it down. And TJ Quinn has said, the book is great. So let's go to Sarah's question, because when we do think about sort of like child abduction or parental abduction, it does tend to be the men. But I know that you were talking about human trafficking, and is that more male-led, or do you think that women are actually more likely to be the ones that are, you know, trafficking the children through borders?
Trafficking itself, yeah, I mean, they are largely male organizations that do the trafficking, but there are a lot of women that are involved. In all elements of crime, there are women involved. Even on our side, and I consider our side as the good side, we use women as well, because two men standing on the street corner or sitting in a car looks very different to a man and a woman sitting in a car or a street corner. But parents' abductions in itself, it's a misconception to say that men in themselves are the ones that do the actual abductions for parental abduction, because it's 50-50. It's always been 50-50, and I've argued this so many times with a lot of people. every case that I've done when it comes, and it is 100% 50-50 all the way through. There are women that do it and there are men that do it, and there's always some sort of mental health issues that are involved on either side.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier, weren't we? Yeah, we were saying that earlier. It's like, you know, there's been the case where they had the video of, you know, sort of like a couple were driving past a beach and saw a woman driving her 4x4 along the beach and then into the sea, and they managed to somehow get there, get the woman out, get her children out, because she was actually just going to, you know, commit suicide because she'd had enough of whatever the abuse she'd been going through.
There's all types of aspects that you have to look into when it comes to a parental abduction, because the mental health of people, they can change at an instant. I've gone through mental health myself. I can understand a lot about it. But when it comes to parental abductions, it's always classed as a safe abduction in the eyes of the law, and it is the biggest mistake that can happen. I've seen cases go to the point where they've committed violence and even killed themselves and the children just to leave a mental scar on the family that's left behind. Yeah. People are brutal when they are literally not in control of their own minds. And then there's the aspect of parental abductions, and going back to what I was saying earlier about the 3 kids that were kidnapped from London by the Afghani father, disappeared, never to be found again. If we had the funds, we could chase that case down quite easily, because if he's gone back to Afghanistan, yes, we could find him quite easily. And then outside of that, if he's in Europe, we have a lot of contacts. You've got to remember that we have an entire veteran network of worldwide veterans everywhere.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because I mean, you know, you said that you've got the security arm to the organisation as well as the recovery arm. So, is this something? I mean, with the Pegasus Ops, I mean, this is something. I mean, obviously, sort of like, you know, we hear about veterans coming back from war and not, you know, I mean, rightly so, because how can you go back into what the whole world calls normality? I mean, what is normal anyway? But, you know, is this something like Pegasus Ops, having a model like that, is that something that could actually allow our veterans to have a continued mission in life? Because when you go to the army, you're going to serve your country, you're going to serve those that need you know, your protection. So is Pegasus Ops a sort of like, I suppose, an opportunity or an outlet for veterans that have come back to civilian life but actually don't know which way they're going?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a major misconception that's out there at the present moment in time, that veterans come back and they're broken. I don't believe it in any way whatsoever, because I was that veteran. I believed I was broken in myself. I was convinced by everybody around me that I've got major problems. But what it turns out to be is the fact that when you come from doing something which is the most extreme levels of your entire life, things that people would never experience in a normal world, and I say normal very lightly, and you've reached the top of your game, people expect soldiers to come back and then to blend into society. They expect them to get a normal job at a factory, which will not entertain their minds, because when a soldier goes to war, his brain is rewired. And that's literally the only way I can describe it. And it's rewired to react very quickly. It's rewired to think very differently, and to believe in so many different things in comparison to what society is. To change those wirings back to normal it's impossible as far as I'm concerned. You cannot expect a soldier at war.
Sorry, I'm talking over you. So, like we said, though, what is normal?
Yeah, well, that's just it. Normalities of what is classed as society, I would say, what the average Joe in society would expect. But it's like I say, you cannot expect someone coming from the top of his game to go and work as a security guard in a local supermarket, or to be a mall cop, or working in a factory, or working on a building site as a static guard standing in the rain. You can't expect that from a guy who's been to the top of his game and took on some of the hardest terrorist networks in the world. Pegasus Ops has the ability to be able to change that. We have the ability to bring in the veteran network. I'm a big believer in the brotherhood. Big believer. I've literally worked in the military side of things. I've got not only military, private military, more so in private military than I have been in the military. And I've been around that military side of life my entire life. It's all I know. So when it comes to, doesn't matter who you served with, doesn't matter what country you served for, doesn't matter what wars you fought in, those people are brothers and sisters to me. They are my family, and this is what changes it, because I'm basically taking the military taught us how to go to war and do their bidding. Do the government's bidding, but outside of that, they spent millions of pounds training us to do things that no one else can do. why waste those skills? Because we can utilize that for the greater good, which takes us to a different level of these other companies, like I said before, because we're now utilizing the government's training, the military's training, and the experiences that we've had all over the world in hostile environments, because there isn't many conflicts that, if anyone served at the same time as me, that we haven't been in since the late 90s. There isn't many conflicts that we haven't been in, so we've got a lot of experience all over the world. You take that into the child recovery side, you've still got an enemy, because it's definitely dangerous what we do. And you've still got that ability to be able to utilize those skills to the greatest advantage. And the satisfaction at the end of it, I'm telling you now, there is nothing greater than seeing that family reunited with a child.
Oh, you know what? I mean,
I'm not an emotional man.
Yeah.
But that makes me emotional.
Of course it does, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's like no child should ever be separated from the main caregiver of, you know, the caregiving parent, whether that's a mother or a father, you know, because the trauma not only to the parent but that child it's horrific. And you know, at some point in the future, I am going to be bringing another guest on whose child, you know, she did take her child because she was escaping a domestic abuse situation, because her child had been born overseas. She was ruled against, and her child was taken, you know, back to his country of birth. And you know, last time I saw him, he was 20, he was 5, and he's now nearly 30. So it's, you know, there's so much trauma involved, and that bond as well, and the trauma for the child. So we've had a few more comments coming in. So no, sort of like Sarah was saying, you know, is it normally sort of patriarchally led? So are the kidnappings or the abductions as an act for the man of the family? But you said it was 50-50. Sarah also said, Jay, you are amazing. Now this is out there. It's only a matter of time before you become a household name. I hope so. And Mark Esho has said, soldiers need a lot more support. They need to be deprogrammed, in my opinion. But I guess, you know, when we think about what, you know, Mark, if you could just expand a little bit on what you mean by deprogram, because I would assume you're saying they don't need to be brought into what civilians will say is normality, because normality is just a weird concept. So what's normal for me is not going to be normal for my friend who lives up in Yorkshire, and what's normal for her isn't going to be normal for someone who lives in Cornwall. It's completely different. Here's my question. Let's talk about your book, because, you know, you were talking about some of your missions being very, very dangerous. And let's talk about what your book is based on. So it's, you know, remind us of the name and, you know, where people can buy it. And then, you know, let's go through a brief synopsis of what the book is about. And excellent. So Angel in the Shadows by Jay Jordan. And it's available on Amazon. Where
and
else?
Still City Press.
Okay, brilliant. So, and one of our viewers very kindly shared the link, but we will share the link again with the audience. You know, please do purchase the book, because it is a fascinating read. So tell us a bit more, because it was about a father who abducted his daughter under the guise of going on holiday. Can you just explain a bit?
So, I mean, that's a common excuse when a parental abduction happens in the first place. So it's always something to be worried about. But basically, mother and father were living in Australia happily with the kid. Father decided, he was from Lebanon, that he wanted to go back to Lebanon on a holiday with his child. Went over there, didn't come back. Mother decided that she wanted to go over there to fight in the courts to try to get the child back. She failed in the courts, and then she called in a private company. I was working in Afghanistan at the time. I didn't know anything about the child recovery industry. I didn't even know it existed at the time. This is back in 2012. But a friend of mine did work in it. I never really paid attention, because obviously the private military world and the private contractor world, it's so vast. People are all over the place. You can never keep up with it. But he would ask me for a point of contact. I'd give him a point of contact. That point of contact with the system. I'd never ask anything else of it. And then it was a constant thing for a few years. At this point, he asked me if I wanted to go over to Lebanon and give him fresh eyes on, because he got to the point on this case that he couldn't figure a way out. So it just so happened that I had to leave Afghanistan with an injury. I lost my hearing for 6 months, which obviously was more of a pain in the ass rather than anything else. But it's like the universe lined up for it all. None of this I ever asked for. I didn't ask to go contracting. I didn't know what contracting was when I started it. Child recovery was exactly the same. I fell into it. So I went over to Lebanon. I gave him fresh eyes on the case, and I was there a week. And by the second day, we were being chased out of town at gunpoint. Vehicle pulled in behind us, tried to block us in. 4 guys jumped out of AKs and shotguns, and we had to smash past them and get out of that town very quickly. Obviously, we tried a lot of other things, and I can't give too much away on this because I really
buy the book, read it.
Yeah. But the entire concept of the book is it's the real story of what happened. There's no fabrication in it. There's no exaggerations in it. It is exactly how things happen. It's got a lot of backstory on me, and the story of Lebanon kicks in around probably around chapter 7 or something like that. And it's quite a fast-paced story because the odds were against us. There was me. I ended up bringing in an ex-bootneck who I can only describe as a comparison to Mad Murdoch out of the 18. He made me laugh so much it was unbelievable, but he was mad.
Yeah. Mad Murdoch was a genius though.
Yeah, no, that's just the point. It was, and what we did was technically what I would class as genius because we completed something that nobody else in the industry has ever completed, and to date they still haven't completed it. They've tried and failed on multiple occasions. So we're still the only people out there that have actually managed to complete this sort of case in Lebanon. But it's the entirety of the case to the point of actually getting back and reuniting with the family.
Yeah,
it's fast paced. It's raw, but it's fast paced.
Which is amazing, and also is something that's very, very exciting because you're in talks about sort of like turning it into, or you're in talks about sort of like making it into a film or movie. So you talks with Hollywood at the moment.
I got a lot of things going on. The movie itself, we've been working on the movie for about 3 years now. End of 2017 I started.
Yeah.
Mid 2018 I had the script written, and I'm dealing with a company out in LA.
Yeah.
It's been presented to Capstone. We're waiting for a small rewrite on it to make it more appealing. And in theory, as long as it all goes to plan, we should be going into pre-production on that next year. So it'll be based on the book.
Which is amazing. So actually, guys, you need to buy the book because, you know, I am a real fan of actually reading a book before I watch a film. Because I think sort of like the book really goes into sort of minute detail, and the film will capture quite a lot of it. But yeah, I think books are always amazing. So we've had a few more comments coming in. Sarah's saying, "Oh God, is that a film already?" So, Mark is saying, "Is it that flight or fight syndrome? They are continuously in fight mode and then expected to integrate into normal society. It's unfair on them." So he was talking about his earlier comment about programming. Sarah's saying, "Okay, so what about kids that go missing in the UK? Many every week. Many are runaways and turn up within a couple of days. Some don't. What point would you get evolved? Because it could be a waste of your time."
It's never a waste of our time. First of all, I'll address Mark's comment about soldiers being in fight or flight mode. We are not in fight or flight mode. We have very much control. We're taught how to control that mode in itself. We're just wired differently. That's all. There isn't soldiers out there that are at the point where they're always aggressive. They learn how to control their aggression, and they're able to take it up to the next levels, and they're able to take it down. It's nothing about that. It's just about the fact that they can come home. I'm more peaceful than I've ever been in my entire life. But at the flick of a switch, I can become the worst nightmare for this entire planet. That's how we're trained. That's literally what it is. And the experiences that I've got has taught me that, because it's a lot easier to be a lot calmer than what it is a lot higher.
To be fair, Jamie, I know people who have never been in the army, who have never served, who can actually be complete nightmares.
Yeah.
Without having having gone through half of the training that you've had.
Of course, yeah. Also, so when it comes to children, a lot of them being runaways and a lot of them coming home, we analyse the situation as soon as we get into a case. I've spoken previously about the reaction of the authorities, their jurisdictions, what they do. A case that we took on in April this year, I wasn't able to get on the ground myself because I was actually over in Iraq, but my team activated very quickly. We realized immediately that it was a online grooming for an individual to gain sexual relations with a young girl. He convinced her online to be able to run away from home, taken into the advantage, and it's all psychological, using the emojis online and building this relationship with And then he convinced her to run away from home because her home life was terrible, and he convinced he can give her a better life and all this sort of stuff. She did. She ran away from home. And as soon as the father called us, we got on the case straight away. I started analysing the situation. Within minutes, we had every profile of the target that he'd ever created on the internet. We saw very quickly a pattern of what he was doing in the aspect of creating a profile, adding millions of young girls, and then literally in every single one till he's got that one that he can actually utilise to his benefit. And he would do that in certain areas. And we was able to build up this pattern within minutes. We built up his criminal record check from the age of 15 through to the age of 23. And this literally, all this took very little time. I had 2 operators coming from 2 different areas of the country into the location because we got an address from her messages. And I had guys doing a walk past at the house, ready to set up surveillance on that house in case we needed to go through that door. And obviously to inform the authorities at the of the address. But again, they weren't very interested. And then outside of that, I had teams activated in 2 areas of the world that were actually going through the entire internet and scouring for information on this guy. So that's how we built a massive pattern. We did all of that in 2 hours. And the police didn't even get to the house to start asking initial questions by the time that we finished.
Mad, isn't it?
So that's a case of a runaway child. She pulled herself out of that situation and she managed to get home. But we were there just in case. That we needed to go through the door, and she pulled it out before we had to. On that night, one of my guys nearly got stabbed. That shows an element of what the danger is, because it was one of these areas which is like these drug gangs, caravan gangs. So we take the risks on that side of things. She pulled herself out of it and she went home. Ran away again. Is it a waste of our time to chase it again? No, it's not a waste of our time, because what we have to try to do is provide that aftercare service. The advice that we gave for the aftercare was to look after the child. We don't know what she's gone through. We don't know how far this has been taken. It's going to take time to open up to it. We need to figure it out and let her come out in her own time. And she needs an environment, take her out of the environment that she's in, put her into a nicer environment, more comfortable environment, give her that time to relax, etc., etc. I won't go into the details of what happened, but it didn't go as we advised. So she ran away again and ended up in a situation where she actually got raped. So then we have to step in again and try to assist again. Not a waste of our time, not a waste of our funds in any way whatsoever, because it's still a child that actually needs us. Now, that's on a smaller scale of what we normally do. Case after that was a counter lines case. Kid groomed into wanting to be in a gang. We couldn't find him. We didn't know where he was. We were working on it. It took us 3 days to be able to get him back home. And since then, we've got an aftercare service where he's changing his entire life around. He's on a one-to-one training for boxing. He's going to be joining an amateur boxing team within the next probably about 10 weeks now. And we've taken him to the beach, mountain climbing, we're taking him camping, stuff like that. Aftercare service that comes into it in place. Again, another small case in comparison to what we normally work towards, but it's a case that we can assist with. So it's just about analysing the case, because there's always something that's going wrong.
I mean, you say it's a small case, and okay, maybe in terms of the time it took to, to work on that case and to get it resolved. However, it wasn't a small case for the children or young people that you actually have helped. And then sort of like the aftercare, because actually that's the thing that a lot of people don't actually hear about. So, with in terms of what Pegasus Ops does, it's amazing, but to also actually understand and hear about sort of like the aftercare that you offer these children, because in order for a child to run away, there must be something that is going drastically wrong at home. I mean, it could just be that the child has just been spoiled and never been shown boundaries. But most of the time, would you say it's because there is something more untoward going on at home that causes the child to run away?
I mean, not necessarily untoward. I mean, I don't want to say the typical UK family, but in comparison to how I grew up, I would say it's very typical for the areas that I grew up in and the way that I grew up. It's breadline families a lot of the time, especially with local cases. There's a lot of arguments. There's a lot of families that are not tight-knitted as a family unit. It's usually there's a lot of arguments in the house. There's a lot of distaste in the house. Counterlines, young lad, single parent, family, wanted to provide for his mother, convinced that this was the best way to do it. So it's understandable why he's gone into that sort of stuff. And I understand that through my own background of me when I wanted to raise funds for my family when I was young. I didn't go into drugs or anything like that, but I did steal. it happens as young kids in the council estates. I managed to get myself out of it, and I had a lot of good male role models in my life, especially primarily after I got out of the military. When I started private contracting, I was dealing with the old school South African mercenaries. These are guys that used to go into countries and start coup d'etats and take over countries for specific reasons for government. These guys were my role models when I went out there, and I was only a kid when I went to Iraq. I was 22 years old as a private contractor. I was the youngest contractor out in Iraq at the time. They taught me a lot about myself, and they taught me how to actually become the man that I became today. A lot of these kids that we deal with, they don't have those male role models in their life. Again, as a veteran community, they've got some very strong male role models there. And then outside of that, with the way that we know how to build teamwork and to build people's character within themselves, that helps us massively, because these kids, they come up to us all the time and they tell us, I've never been camping, I've never been to Alton Towers, I've never done the basic simple things in life, and we're able to give them that opportunity to be able to do that. It changes everything. The last kid that we got back out of the county lines, he's completely on the straight and narrow, and I'm not kidding when I tell you he's got some major potential for the future, and it's all because he's got the role models around.
See, that's amazing. So actually, you're doing, it's like, it's not just about repatriating children with their families. It is, you're doing so much more. And I think this is why, sort of like having had the initial conversation with you, I was just absolutely fascinated by what you do, your ethos, and the fact that actually there is something here that we do need to help. We do need to help our communities. So we've had a few more comments coming in. So we've had Sarah saying, it is a particular set of skills. Ella Stokes Wilkinson, the reader, saying, I've read the book. It is an amazing read. I can't wait for the next one, because you have written a few more books, or a few more books are going to be coming through. So can you tell us a little bit more about those?
We have plans for three books total, and we've more recently, in the last few months, we've got a fourth one ready, but it's not written down yet. The idea is a plan. Outside of that, the first 3 books, they're going to be turned into 3 movies as long as the first movie is successful. So that's where we want to go for the franchise on the movies, to create a series like Jack Reacher, and then take it into a TV series after that as well. So that's what we're trying to do with it.
Yeah, which is amazing. So like what I think it's one of sort of like one of our viewers earlier up said, where's the comment? So Cammy said he is the real British Liam Neeson. So I know, like, I've been sort of like on the ads, I've been talking about you being the real Liam Neeson, which I'd probably say you're far better than the Liam Neeson character. Now here's a question that is very interesting. So Will's actually said, has COVID made your cases more difficult now with regards to travel restrictions, or have you still been able to continue?
To a certain extent, it has. There's one case that I've had on my books for over a year now. We can't get to it because the country that we're actually got to go to and the surrounding countries are locked down by COVID. So that has a major effect. When it comes to European cases, the majority of the time, not so much. It slowed us down to an aspect of getting a green light from the families, more so than it has actually us being able to get on the ground.
Yeah. So no, that's fine. So now, I mean, this is a half-hour show and it has gone way over, but I knew it would, because there's so much. I mean, I think this is literally all what we've touched is literally just the tip of the iceberg of this all. Now, with the book, the movie, and hopefully, sort of like the full franchise with the TV show as well, what is next for Pegasus Ops? I mean, if people want to support you, how can they support you?
Primarily, we need awareness raised, because I believe that it's not a fact that we don't have the support. It's the fact that we don't have the people knowing what we're doing. The amount of times I come across people that don't know who we are, what we do, or even the fact that services like what we provide exist as an alternative service of just sitting and waiting for the police. So awareness is key. Sharing videos, talking about it, buying the book, sharing the book. Now, like I said before, we try to raise money from all aspects possible. So we're creating merchandise, we're creating T-shirts and stuff like that. It's all gone to the printers. We're waiting for it all to get finished off and then get printed so we can put it up onto the shop. The shop is not live on the website at the moment. Well, it's live, but it's empty. But the profits from that merchandise is going to go to funding these cases. The profits from it is going to go to funding the cases. The profit from the book is going to fund in these cases. So we're trying to find out alternate ways. Now, like I said, the theory of what we're trying to do and the concept of what we're trying to do is donations. If we can get people to donate £2, a million people donate £2, 4 to 6 cases every month for 2 to 3 years. Awareness, donations, raising that money is the key element in itself. Like I say, I've got a lot of cases sitting on my desk right now that I'm trying to work on. I'm working on it in the background, but I've already used literally the majority of all my savings, which my wife is not best pleased about, but I always do it, and then I end up going back to Iraq or Afghanistan. This is something I'm trying to avoid doing, because that's when we will start slipping by the wayside and the company will start to die. And I can't have that to happen because I've been working on it too long. Well, awareness and donations, that's the prime way of anyone can help.
Okay, and the thing is, in all of this, in terms of how to donate, etc., it's all on your website. It's also on your social media handles. So if people want to actually find you, they've got the website. You know, you're also on LinkedIn. You're on Instagram, TikTok.
TikTok's the key one.
I mean that's how we sort of connected. So
so the website has access to all of it. If you go to the website, there's a donate button on the website, so you can do that. If you go to the TikTok, they've also got the PayPal and Cash App, so you can do donations through that as well. Obviously, it's a lot more difficult to put those onto the website itself. Also, we've got a picture slider that goes across the top, so you'll see the picture of the book, which is Angel in the Shadows. I'll show you again just to remind you. If you click that picture, that'll take you to a company called Steel City Press. That's our publishers. We make more money through the publishers than we do Amazon, because Amazon obviously take their cut. Steel City Press for internationals, and for UK and Europe, you've also got Amazon, the opportunity on there as well. Anyone that buys a book, write a review, spread it out there. Anyone that's got friends that do reviews, or friends that want to do interviews, friends that want to talk about it, that got a big following, influencers, get me in touch with them. I'll talk to them. Get this out there. Social media links on it as well. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And, you know, honestly, I mean, we've had so many, I just absolutely love doing this show. So thank you so much, because we've had so many comments coming through. So Sarah's actually made a really, really good point. So could the aftercare aspect be enhanced by decent men in society being nominated as mentors? So is that something that you might look at, is creating like a mentorship program?
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. Right now, we've got quite a few affiliations, and the affiliations that we're creating, they work in mental health support, they work in sports and fitness, and things like this. There's an opportunity that we might be able to do that eventually. But again, it would be a long way off without our affiliations. Our affiliations are key to us at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I tend to get personally involved in it also.
No, but the thing is that it's a passion of yours, and you know, at the end of the day, if you don't get involved, then you know, yes, I think the team that you said that you've got around you are clearly going to be as passionate as you are. But this is your baby, and the passion is absolutely there, and it has to be, because you're doing this from the goodness of your heart. You're not doing it for anything other than you want those children that you're repatriating or rescuing to have a good life, to have a better life, to achieve what their dreams are.
Every case that I take on, you'll see it. If you go to my website and you read the case files, you'll see testimonials from previous clients, and they'll tell you exactly what I'm like. I take on a case and I consider it my own children that have gone missing, and that takes me to the next level and pushes me so much further than what it would do if I didn't see it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the most important thing though, Jay, because at the end of the day, I think when you're doing anything like this, you know, when you are working with children or working with vulnerable, you know, even vulnerable adults, if you can actually see them as your own family and actually put yourself in their shoes or the shoes of their family, then you are going to be a lot more emotive, and that is going to really drive you that much further. So we've had Sarah's got some great ideas. I think you might have a committee member coming on here with Sarah, unless she's already a committee member of the charity. But she says, can you produce car stickers? Just car stickers again. I mean, there's lots of different things. And I know we spoke earlier in terms of trying to network. So anybody that's watching, you know, those of you that are watching that have got business connections, that have got really great, you know, corporate networks going on, please contact Jay and, you know, offer the support where you can, whether that's sharing Pegasus Ops with your network, whether that's actually donating a certain amount, because actually let's talk about social responsibility and cause-related marketing, because actually, you know, this is an amazing course. You're also going to be supporting the veterans that are going to be working with Jay as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, is there anything else you want to add, you know, to what we've spoken? I mean, like I said, I think we could talk for hours on this, and I'd love to get you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'd love to get, you know, maybe get another date in and talk a little bit further about where you are with the book and the film and a few more cases. But is there anything else you want to sort of like tell the people who are watching the show?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I want people to understand where we're trying to go with this, because there is always a lot of misconceptions, and the industry is very tainted as it is. And it's tainted in the aspect of what these other companies do towards these families themselves. What we're doing is completely the opposite of what they're doing. We're trying to stop all of that from happening. So I want people to understand where our goal is, and our goal is to become the largest child recovery company around the world. I want to be able to regulate the industry, and I want to train professionals and actually put standards, SOPs, all standards operating procedures in place worldwide to be able to take on any case around the world, including America, for cross-state boundaries and everything like this. And that is where I plan to go with this. Right now, we could be seen as small fry in comparison to someone in the States who's taken on a sex trafficking case. But you've got to understand that this isn't the same as taking on sex traffickers. The more cases that we take on over the years, it's going to get to the point where there's more reasons of why we're taking on these cases in the first place. Whether that be an individual who's actually going out and committing a crime, or whether that, and when I say crime, I'm pretty sure you can all understand reading between the lines of what I mean. And then obviously the organized crime side of things, the sex trafficking side of things, it's going to come into play, and that's when the world will actually see what we're made of.
Absolutely. So Sarah's still saying about the car stickers. I'm assuming sort of like, Jay, you know, it's something that you could put into sort of like your sort of like bag to do. So, and I could put you in touch with a few people who are sort of like printers who are very philanthropic. So, you know,
we've got an entire list of products that we want to do. We've got to start small because obviously donations are very low at the moment, because I've been running cases whilst donations have just come in. We've just had to start up a new crowdfunding because I don't know why. But our Just Giving page was closed down automatically. I don't know if it runs a certain time or not, but it's a new one that started up, which is the link in the on the website. But because donations are low, we're starting off small. We're going to start with a few t-shirts, a few hoodies, and we're going to build up. We've got a lot of designs and everything already, but we plan for cups, we plan for car stickers, we plan for patches to sew on, and Velcro patches and stuff like that. There's an entire array of things that we're trying to get out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'm sure sort of like with the network of people that are watching and their network and sort of like, you know, networks between all of us, I'm sure we could support you in whichever way we can.
Yeah.
Which I did want to ask you is, do you actually have any psychiatrists working with you at the moment? Yeah,
like I said, it's with our affiliations, we've got people that work in children's mental health itself, and they're charity organizations. We've also got the military side of things, and we've got the military organizations that we're creating affiliations with that have got registered psychiatrists, etc.
Right, okay. So so you've got the whole full support network. So do you know what, honestly, Jay, I could literally talk to you for hours on this, because it is just so fascinating. And, you know, honestly, hats off to you, because I'm so in awe of what you and your team are doing. It's absolutely phenomenal. And you know, we've had so many people watching the show live. So, you know, we've had Caroline Moorish has joined us. We had a few other people, sort of like Daniel Panther. He said he's just ordered the book. He's joined us. We had, excuse my pronunciation if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Ionella Jordan, who's been watching. And yeah, I mean, we've had so many comments coming through, and Jessica has said, Rupa, you are the best interviewer. Can't wait to see more. Thank you. That's thank you. It's just, you know what, the way I look at it is just actually it's the guests that come on that make this so much easier to do, because, you know, Jay, you've got so much information to share. You're doing so much. Here's the thing with the veteran side of things. I mean, obviously, because you are sort of like bringing on board veterans to work with you. Is this something that the government, or could something be done to actually get the government to start supporting, I suppose, veteran integration into what you do? So, like, find some sort of funding.
I mean, there is potential for it, but again, I don't think we're recognised enough to be able to take it on that way yet. We're part of the Armed Forces Covenant, so the Armed Forces Covenant gives us opportunities to be able to speak to local council members and support us through the Armed Forces Covenant in recruitment. Now, being part of the Armed Forces Covenant, there's a lot of organisations that get in touch with us primarily to ask us for money to support them, which is fantastic, and we do as much as we can to be able to support them. But also at the same time as that, they're supporting us. There's a magazine that's coming out issue next month. They've given us a massive discount to be able to get a double page feature in there. So that helps us massively as well. So everyone's coming together to be able to work. I think primarily when the government come into it is going to be if we are able to start to win these contracts as the governments, the local councils in particular, are actually taking on the seriousness of missing children and bringing those contracts out there to contract us to work on missing children, especially from care homes and things like this, and going to county lines. And if we're able to take those contracts, that's when the government's going to be able to see what we're up to and see what we're all about, and they're going to be able to support us a lot more. Otherwise, there's not been seen much interest from the government or authorities as of yet.
Well, like I said, let's see what all of us can do that have been, that have been involved in the show tonight. Let's see how many people we can network up together, and then get something going. Because I agree with Sarah. It's like, she's saying that, think big. Cami said, "Well done both. What a great podcast." But that's actually, Jay, thank you, because you've made this part. You've made this interview.
You made it easy for me.
No, it is honestly, it's all about the people that are the guests that come on, because you guys, sort of like the level of information you have, what you do, that's what inspires me. Caroline, so she's saying, fabulous book. Son has his so her son has his nose in it now. And Sarah said, look, campaign our MPs, everyone. So, that's something to look at. So, and what I'll do, I've got a few people that I'm going to be working with going forward, which I'm more than happy to connect you up with. But, Jay, it's just been, okay, so Daniel Pantra said it's because half the government are involved in the unseen.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy side of things. And I'm not saying that conspiracies are wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shunning you for having a conspiracy, because I'm a big conspiracy theorist myself. But wrong time or wrong place.
It's just, I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's like everybody has an opinion based on their view. Well, I suppose based on their experience, what they've seen, what they've read, and really it's about, let's find solutions and let's find a way to get people involved, and so don't get Jay started on conspiracy.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
That's one other interview that we'll do. But Jay, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It really has. And just say, thank you to everybody that's joined us. Thank you so much for your comments, because it's like having these comments coming back and forth, and the questions, it really does make this whole worthwhile. We've had Daniel saying, respect to you for what you're doing, sir. And like I said, Jay, amazing. So I'm just going to tell the audience what we, before we sort of head off, I'm just going to tell the audience what we're going to be doing. So the 2nd of August, I'm back again with Courtney Fry, who is he was a Commonwealth Games champion, boxing champion. He was also an Olympian, and he actually, this is someone actually I'd love to introduce you to, Jay. He runs an academy up in the north, Manchester way, where he actually takes children, sort of like kids that may be from underprivileged backgrounds, and he helps them, trains them in boxing, and gives them a little bit of a direction to their life. So I think he'd be a great person for you to connect with. So yeah, I'm interviewing him on the 2nd of August, and he'll be talking about his charity and everything he does. But Jay, any final last words for everybody watching?
Yeah, don't forget to share all my stuff and get the word out there. Raise awareness, raise donations, help us out as much as you can. It's going to change the world, I can promise you. Absolutely. It's going to change the world. It's going to change the world for all those children that are, that are potentially feeling hopeless at the moment. So, Jay, thank you so much. It's honestly, I appreciate having me on.
you want to show your book again? So anybody listening, go get on to the publishers, get the book. So yeah, Angel in the Shadows by Jay Jordan. And Sarah's just said, get car stickers out then.
Yeah. It's on the list, don't worry.
You know what, Sarah, you sound very much like me. I'm one of these, like, once I get my head into something, it's like, nope, got to do it. So Jay, thank you again so much. You know, we will share your links on here, we'll repost this, and you know, anybody that wants to talk to Jay about, you know, corporate sponsorship, individual sponsorship, or, you know, social responsibility or cause-related marketing, please reach out to Jay, because every penny counts. And you know, you've heard what he said, with the amount of money that you know, if he was to raise £100,000, that could give you, how many children could you actually rescue with that, with 100,000?
I mean, at the high end, that's 3 to 4 children, but realistically, that's 5 to 6 children.
Well, there you go. In comparison to, say, one child being rescued, potentially being rescued, if that 150. So, you know, let's support this. Let's support Pegasus Ops. And yeah, so thank you so much. An hour and 10 minutes for a half-hour show, but you know what? That's the beauty of podcasting. So thank you. And just want to say, so yeah, Daniel's saying, please buy the book. It helps raise money to return these children. Please do. You know, again, Angel in the Shadows, it is available. We've shared the links. We'll share them again. And yeah, so thank you all for watching. Thank you for your comments. And we will hopefully see you on the 2nd of August. If you do want to follow, you can just go on to the Double 15 Minutes, click to follow, and then subscribe to get updates. So you'll then get messages through for when we're doing the next show. And yeah, just want to say to everyone, you know, have a good evening. Hopefully it's cooled down a little bit and we can all stop melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see everybody on the 2nd of August. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.